Hey everyone, it's Jan, and I hope your new year is off to a great start. I'm excited about so many things that I have to share with you this year, but right now I'm going to introduce you to a new series I'm working on called Illuminated Journaling. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you've seen some of the illustrations I've been adding to what I'm calling a journaling Bible. And I'm having so much fun, and I've gotten so many requests for me to share some of that with you. And so today I'm going to show you just a really easy little technique. I'm calling it Art on the Edge. And I'm going to show you how I put this really fun decoration on the edge of my journaling Bible. But hang in with me, even if you're not yet totally involved in the Bible journaling trend out there. Know this would be great to do on a altered book project as well, because the technique is going to work no matter what kind of book edge you're trying to put it on. So let me show you what I used and how I did it. Here are the supplies I'm going to be using. I'm using my journaling Bible, and because I've already put some tabs on the top and it has art in it, I am just going to work on the long edge, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging than if it was a book that had not had any art in it yet. Now, I'm showing you here that my intention was to work with the stamps, and I was looking for kind of some open stamps, some florals that I could kind of group as I wanted. And this tutorial is a little different than others that you have seen me do because you're seeing me actually do it for the first time. So I'm going to show you the things that didn't work as well as the things that did. I am going to work with either the Stays On the or Archival. Those tend to not bleed when we are stamping on the thinner paper that is in our Bibling journals. I'm definitely going to use some rubber bands to hold my edges together. And at this point, I'm thinking the rubber bands are going to be tight enough. And as we get into this tutorial, you will see that I add more rubber bands, I end up adding washi tape, and honestly, at the very best is putting the rubber bands and the washi tape on it kind of gave it that first line of tightness, and I ended up using my hands to hold it a little bit tighter, but we'll get into that in a minute. I have a variety of small brushes. We want to work with the minimum amount of water possible, so working with a smaller brush will ensure that you don't get too much water. Now, I pulled out my Twinkling H2Os. I love these. They are a shimmery watercolor paint that you can add water to and kind of get them to the consistency that you want, and they're highly pigmented. So I love working with these, and they worked great on the edge of the Bible, but you may not have those. So let me show you a couple of other options. There is a very inexpensive set of shimmering watercolors that I have, and I'm going to incorporate some of those along with it because they had a couple of softer colors. Again, as opposed to putting water on the brush and putting it in the palette, I'm showing you that I want my spray bottle there, and I will add water to it so I can make the paint the consistency that I want. Here is another thing that you could do. If you just have regular watercolors, you can take some of this Winsor Newton iridescent medium, put a few drops into the colors that you want to use, and it will turn them into the iridescent shimmer paint like these other two. So you've got options. Okay, so let's get started here. I am not trying to bind the book cover in there. The cover is larger and wider, and since my initial plan is to stamp my pattern on here, and at this point I'm trying to figure out how can I get this as tight as I possibly can. I put the rubber bands around it, that helped. I put washi tape around it, that helped. If this were not a Bible that I already had done quite a bit of work in, maybe the rubber bands and the washi tape would have been enough, but I ended up realizing because of all the extra stuff that's in there, we're just having to hold it together really well. Now, what I'm showing you here is that I had grand plans for doing the stamping, and I'm using my archival ink, and it's not going to bleed. But because my edge is kind of bumpy and lumpy and all of those things, it's well loved and well art filled, and I'm very happy about that. But it made it very difficult to get a flat surface to actually stamp on. Now, the video is making it look even worse than it actually is. I realized maybe if I would just hold it a little tighter, I would get a better impression. And I probably got a marginally better one. It's still missing a lot. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll go try it again. And I'm thinking about lining it up and seeing if I can make this work. And I needed 4 hands, is all I'm going to tell you. I needed 4 hands, and I gave up because what you can't see is that there was enough of an impression there that I was able to go in. Now, I'm using this Sharpie pen. This is not a Sharpie marker. I want to be really clear about that. A Sharpie marker would probably soak in. But that one wasn't giving me enough. So I pulled out this Faber-Castell Pitt big brush pen, and I love it. It's not soaking in. It's a brush pen, so I can do fine lines and I can do thicker lines. I wanted thicker lines, so there was definition around my art. And so I used the pattern that had been stamped, and I filled all that in with the pen. But then I went and just kind of free-handed a few things to just fill in the ends that were based on the pattern of the floral stamps that I was using. Now, the stamp, in case you're interested, is I believe it's called Folk Art by Paper Tray Ink. It's really nice, open, in that folk art, wood carved kind of tradition. Thought it looked really, really nice. And you can see that I'm adding water to my pots because our Bible pages are not necessarily, they were certainly not intended for, they're not ideal for us painting on. They're thin. They are not they're certainly not watercolor paper. So we want to use as little water as possible when we're doing that. And so I am using a small brush that limits the amount of water that you can actually have on it. I make the paints wet as opposed to dipping my water and bringing the water on the brush to the paint and trying to make it moist and kind of inky. So those two things will help you keep it from or just to lay really nicely on the surface. Now, shimmer paints in particular, whether you use the iridescent medium or you're using the twinkling H2Os, they twinkle because they have mica powder in there. And when you paint on the edge, some of it is that mica is going to flake off just a little bit. I found that spraying it after it was all done, having it really tight, and then giving it a couple seconds to dry, and then fanning my book. Now I'm coming in closer so that you can see really and truly what the consistency on my paper is, and on my paint, and just how I'm not putting tons and tons of paint on my paintbrush. I'm dipping back into the paint often. All of those things help me manage the water content on the edge of my Bible. Now, I have seen people use like their Bic markers and that sort of thing and have gotten great results. I was just a little nervous myself, but I would certainly try it. The thing was, I knew that I could control the amount of fluid, and I really was not confident because this was not something that I could test and then go back and figure it out. And I either needed to kind of be tentative to begin with, and that's where I went. I went kind of with tentative things that I knew would work, and then kind of use them a little more boldly. Okay, the last thing I wanted to do was to add a background to all of this. I was kind of trying to recreate some of the artwork that you would see on Bibles that back before there were printing presses and the monks were doing copies. They would also put just gorgeous monograms, and their illustrations were just gorgeous. And I'm gonna share some more with you on that as we get into some more projects with this. There's a exhibition here in Nashville that has some of those original illustrated pages that I went and looked, and I just think they're phenomenal. And I think with the Bible journaling that we're doing, there has been sacred art around our faith for so long, and I love that it's a creative expression that comes out of my faith. So here you can see, once it was totally dried, I left the rubber bands and the washi tape on it, waited till it was fully dried, actually left it overnight, totally cinched in tight, but you can see that it did not bleed at all. So I hope you'll try this for yourself. I also want to encourage you to use the hashtag Illuminated Journaling on any of your projects. I will be going and searching on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to see the projects that you have. Be sure and follow me. I will have some new projects to share with you there. And I have a few workshops that are coming up focusing on the Illuminated Journaling. So be sure and check out the UCAN classroom in a few days, because I will have some fun things to share there if you want to learn more about this. You all take care. Let's have a great new year, and be sure and save some time for creative play.